a good way to start is by just, sharing a little story about what inspired you to start the Millennium Alliance in general.
So it's nothing that crazy of a story for Rob or I. I think he would agree that as part of his life's plan, it was never to start a business or to be a so-called entrepreneur. It wasn't the case for me, where I wanted to feel like I needed to become a business owner. We just worked at the same company after we graduated, or after I graduated from college. I ended up joining the company that he was at. We were both really good at it. You know, I think there was like a calling, our calling in life was to be doing what we're doing. And we felt after a certain period of time that we felt we could do the model better. We felt we could create a company with a fantastic culture. What we do is not so overly complicated. It requires a ton of attention to detail, a ton of authenticity. It just requires just putting in a lot of hard work and knowing what you're good at and kind of knowing what you're not good at, which I think is probably part of any business or any team. But for us, in addition to knowing what we were strong in to get the business to where it is now and to where we want to go, we had to bring on people from all different walks of life that were as good as we felt we were at what we did at what they were going to be tasked to doing. And that's why not only do we have a great company, but we especially have a great management team who's been with us almost since the beginning. Mostly everybody, all 12, 13, 14 people, however big the team is now. From our perspective, it was just a matter of knowing that it was our time to leave the company we were at before. And we knew what we could achieve if we just stayed focused and we stayed true to who we are. And we've done that times, I don't know, 100 from my perspective.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. As somebody who's been here close to 8 years, the values just keep, they remain the same. And I want to take it from you, who started Millennium, but how do you stay true to the values from when you started, from when the moment you were like, I want to start this business, to now, with all the growth that you've had and the success that you've had? How do you stay true to those values?
It's just never shying away from like who you are. Like everybody is who they are. I'm me. All the, I guess people would say, good things about me and all my flaws, and never trying to be anything other than who I am. And I know Rob feels the same way. I think a lot of times when people either start businesses or maybe not actually start them, probably most people stay true to who they are in the early days. But as businesses get bigger and there's more notoriety and there's more attention, I think people sometimes fall into a trap that they need to be a certain way. And I've never been comfortable being anybody other than myself. And I think one of the things about Rob and I is that we're in the trenches, right? It doesn't mean, we're on sales calls all day, but we're on the floor. We don't sit in private offices, whether it's on either of the floors in New York or when we go over to London. We don't do that because we read that in a management book. We do that because in our minds, where else would we be? We like being around people. We like getting to know people. We like helping people. And I think that goes a long way. I think it's natural to us and that's what we want to do, but there's also a knock-on effect that I think people really appreciate it when they see, I guess, the two founders just sitting in with everybody else and doing their work with everybody else. Whether I'm doing an interview, whether I'm talking to, one of our partners, whether it's the agency we partner with or whether it's the PR company we work with. I mean, I do a lot of those calls and a lot of those have those conversations right out in the open. And I just, I think with us, it's another thing is admitting when we get things wrong. We are not perfect. I think we get a lot right. But as you probably experienced over the course of your 8 years being here, when we're wrong or we make a mistake or we come up short on something, we don't hide it and we acknowledge it. And I think that goes a long way because I think people know that when we compliment them or when we say something is good, they know we actually really mean it. Because when we don't do good and when people know it, we're going to acknowledge that as well. Or when the company falls short of something. And I think that's helped with our culture to this point.
So, with all the growth and success that, we've been going through, it's a very exciting time to be at Millennium Alliance. What's one thing that you wish every candidate, now that we're growing continuously into 2026, what's one thing that you wish every candidate would know going into their interview with you or with Rob or Gabby, Sal, anybody, that they need to know about this place, about working here?
Well, I think one interesting thing about Millennium, I didn't realize how unique this was until after interviewing so many people over the years would tell me, is that you can't get into Millennium in any department unless you speak to me, right? So I'll do the shortest interview out of everybody. Usually a candidate in any department will speak to maybe 2 or 3 people for 30 minutes to an hour before, and then I'll spend about 15 minutes. But it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where I am in the world, I'm speaking to you before you come into Millennium. And the reason is because I want to be able to get a sense that at minimum, you're, from my best guess, a kind and good person. And at a minimum, from my best guess, you have a good work ethic. And it's very rare that that combination of people doesn't do well here. We can figure anything else out. But if your intentions are good and you're generally coming from a good place and you work hard, very rarely does it not work out here. You get a long time period to figure it out here in any department if those are the 2 things that are constant about your particular personality. So I want people to know that it's not like you're auditioning for, to be in a play or into a movie. You don't have to act when you talk to us. You got to be, and it will come through. We look for people. We can sense if people are not being true to who they are, or they're kind of acting in a way in which they think they're supposed to act. That stuff, it doesn't work in the job that many of the people have to do, especially in sales roles. Not being authentic hurts you more than it helps you. I want people to know that they can be who they are. There is no cookie cutter type person that we have at Millennium. When I talk to people, I very rarely talk to them about anything that's related to the job, just trying to get to know them. And we like to hire interesting people, diverse backgrounds, good stories. And I just want people to know that they can be free to be themselves when they talk to us. They do not have to be what they think they may have seen on a YouTube video or heard in a podcast. They need to be who they are, because they should want to get the job or get to work here based on that and nothing else.
I think being a Mets fan certainly doesn't.
Being a Mets fan doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt.
I think this is one of the best places to work, but it's also one of the best events companies, in the world now.
Yeah.
We're global. In your view, being at the top, what sets Millennium Alliance apart from others in the industry?
Well, I think when it comes to the North American space, when it comes to our model, it's undisputed. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that supports it, but going through the process we just went through in terms of teaming up with Boston Ventures, I mean, it's undisputed that when it comes to the North American market, we are the best at what we do. I always felt that in my bones, but it's validated in multiple different ways now. And just from customer feedback, our staff knows that we are the best at what we do. It doesn't mean we're not going to continue to get better. And that means there's a huge opportunity in Europe and potentially other locations around the world as well. I mean, in Europe, we're young, but we have the same goal in Europe than we did in the US, which is just to be the best at this. So that's a big focus for us, to get Europe as strong in America, always continue to grow America. America is an amazing market. There are endless things that we can do in the US. So the upfront objective is to get the same momentum in Europe. I mean, it took years in America to get there, but to get there in Europe, and I'm fully confident that we'll get there. I mean, Millennium, at the end of the day, when it comes to culture and it comes to training, I don't think there's any comparison. Not just in our industry, but I don't think there's that many organizations out there that have the culture we do. And again, it's not fake, it's real. It's a real culture. It's one where people can be honest, and mistakes happen, and there's a lot of trust back and forth between people and departments. But the training, I mean, I often joke, as I say to people, this is the Harvard of selling. And I want people that come here, if they come here in a sales role or any type of business development, customer facing or prospect facing role, that whether it works out or not, they're going to know that Millennium did everything they could to make it work for them. And obviously, if people are good here and they do well here, I want them to be here forever. But sometimes people may want to do something else. And I want that, if that's the case, I mean, most of our people stay with us up until now. It's been forever. But if there are people that want to try something else, I want them to know that, or I want them to feel that when they leave, that the experience they had at Millennium put them in a better situation than they could have been if they didn't come here. That the skills and the people they met internally and externally, that it was worth it. And they're in a much better spot in their life, personally and professionally, because of their experience here. So no matter how long people stay, which again, we got a great track record of people never leaving and having tons of success here in all different departments. But I think that if you were asking anybody that was to go do something outside of what we do in our industry, that I would assume 100% of the time they're going to say that they're better off for coming here than not. And to me, that's what it's all about.